Welcome back. Like I said, we're in the final stretch before the presidential elections, but the governorship elections will be holding 2 weeks after that. And you can't talk about Nigeria without talking about Lagos State because it's a fundamental part of this country and its economy. And as we heard before, we did invite both candidates for the governorship elections in Lagos, but the PDP candidate is here to talk to us, and the APC candidate was invited, but unfortunately turned us down, if I may use that in very clear terms. I have here with me Mr. Jimi Agbaje. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming. There's a lot to talk about with Lagos State. Like I said, it's the most important state in Nigeria, without any doubt, and I think everybody knows that fact. And I want to start with something that I think every Nigerian knows Lagos for, which is traffic. And it's something that we seem to find solutions to when we talk about the rails that has been built and all of that. But I want to talk more specific. In the short term, do you have any plans to ease the pains of Lagosians with traffic?
Well, in the short term, definitely. I mean, I will concede that the BRT is a very good idea. Unfortunately, the implementation has not been the best. So we've got to look at the implementation of the BRT and see how you can make it better for the people. Of course, you've got to be, you find a lot of traffic too is with potholes here and there. There's small patches that are bad, and that tends to work very badly. And so again, it's to be stronger, so to say, on those patchy areas, because you find that once you patch them, traffic moves better. So you've got to do that better. You've got to do the rail, definitely. We've got the water also. If you look at places like Ikorodu, Ikorodu takes an average about 4 hours to Lagos from Ikorodu. But by water, it's just about 30 minutes. And so if you're able to do that, then you're able to release people from the roads.
But the present administration seems to have at least be on that track with waterways in particular. Are they not already working on that? Are you going to be doing anything differently?
Yes. What you've had on the waterways is you've got small boats, very small boats, and there's still many people who are still very scared of those small boats. So we've got to see how we can get bigger boats, ferries more or less, so that people feel safer. It's only the strong that tend to use those small boats across the water. So you've got to do that. And then, like I said, you've got to look at those roads, especially the patchy areas, and just try and do something.
I want to talk about Apapa. It's a very complex place. But before we get to that, actually, I saw a poll not too long ago about some of the causes of traffic in Lagos. And number one, by a mile, was downfall buses. And people have talked about, should we ban it? Should we phase it out? Should we completely take them out for BRTs to replace them? But it's going to be a very controversial decision to take, because we know what happened when Okadas were banned and people got very angry. Is this something you're going to be looking at?
Yeah, it's not about banning. When you watch, if you're observant, you find that you create a bus stop where there shouldn't be a bus stop. The way it starts is you just drop one person today. Then tomorrow, there are 2 buses dropping people there, and then it's 4 buses. And once you do that, then all of a sudden, there's a person who's selling orange who now sees, like, look, this is a small market here. And then, you set up a small market there. And so you've created another bottleneck. That's the way. So the idea is not to encourage the coming up of these spots, so to say, and then trying to clean up those areas that are just not good for traffic.
Let's talk about Apapa now, because I mentioned that. And I think it's one place that, you're laughing because everybody knows how terrible Apapa is today, and we're not sure what the problem is. The federal government blames the state government says it's the federal government. Today tankers are not there, tomorrow they're back. One breaks down and the entire town is in lock.
Yeah.
What is the solution to Apapa?
Well, I stay in Apapa, that's why I was laughing. So, you don't need to tell me how bad it is. But I think it's the fact that the way our economy is, one, you got probably 90% plus of petroleum products that are utilized or consumed or used in this country coming from Apapa.
Which is very important.
So that means that you got all the tankers coming in. You got the seaports. Again, the bulk of the imports in this country come from Tinkan and Apapa. So you got that there. And you've only got 2 ways out of Apapa, or in and out of Apapa. Now, of course, it's no longer workable. And these are part of the challenges of a growing mega city. So in addressing that is one, now the tankers are coming in because the pipelines are no longer working. Don't forget that the pipelines were vandalized right through, because ideally the pipelines that go right across this country to pump petroleum products. But those are no longer working because they've been vandalized, and that's why you're having to lift. So we've got to get those pipelines back, and that means we need to have some measure of security so that those pipelines are no longer vandalized. So that's one. Secondly, we've got to put some kind of a real system in place from our ports to just lift products away. Then we've got to have a park outside Apapa where there is a system where only those tankers and trailers that are needed at any point in time are allowed to come into Apapa. So you need a park, a tanker trailer park outside Apapa where there's communication between the ports, between the tank farms.
But I hear that something like that had been tried and the tanker drivers have refused to go.
They refused because, again, the government, in this case, the state, this was with the state government, they didn't agree on how to get it to work. So it's important that we see it as important. And so the government must agree with the tanker, the trailer people to get this thing sorted out.
It needs to be sorted out. But
Yes.
just one final question before we leave transportation,
Sure.
because you've mentioned rail a few times.
Sure.
And I know the present administration, it was one of their focal points. They started working on the blue line.
Yeah.
That was going to end up in Marina, but the completion date was supposed to be last year, I think.
2012.
It wasn't met, and there's a lot of talk about funding being an issue. Are you going to stop that program? If you're going to continue it, how do you expect to fund it?
Oh, definitely not stop. I think the model that is being used is the problem. The blue line was supposed to have been ready 2012. And they were in 2015. But then it's because I think government has decided to take more than it can chew. Ideally, the way you run the rail line is similar to what you do with the bus system, where government does the roads and the private people run the bus. But I think in this case, what government has done, what the state government has done, is try to do the rail lines and also do the coaches. So it's too much for it. It doesn't have the resources, and so it's a start and stop thing, and that's really where we are. And so that's something. But since we're talking about debate, it's interesting that a mega city is about planning ahead. And don't forget that on the Jacon Day, we're going to have the metro line. It's interesting that it's the present presidential candidate that cancelled that metro line. So maybe if we had the metro line at that time, we would not be having these kind of problems today.
I knew you were going to throw that in, actually.
Well, it's debate.
But let's talk about security now, because you actually mentioned security there. And Lagos is not particularly affected by, at least directly, by terrorism and Boko Haram and all of that. But something that seems to be on the rise these days is armed robbery.
Yeah.
We've heard so many stories. You were at the scene in Lekki where the unfortunate incident happened, I think, last week. Are there things you're going to be doing differently? Do you support state policing, for example? Because it's a hot topic now.
Yeah.
The APC seems to want to push that. Generally, are you something you're going to be working
No, I'm not sure it's an APC thing, honestly. I mean, I support state police, and I'm not APC. So I believe that we need to have state police. We need to have state police because, as a government, as a state government, you've got priorities. The police is federal, is stretched. So if I say I want to talk about the spots where people are just dropping people unnecessarily, for example, the federal police may say, look, we've got bigger problems. But if I have a state police, I say, I need you to do this. These are some of the benefits. If I have a state police, I know that the communities are better policed. So definitely, I am for having a state police.
The biggest reason people are against it is because of how it might be used by state governors. Is this something you're also worried about?
Well, you can't, because of something, just... It's like, which is better, to have it or not to have it? There are pros and cons to everything. So yes, that is one downside to it. But then there is the purpose for having a state police. The benefits are more than that. I mean, you're talking of people are afraid that you'd use it, to be force against force. Again, you can have guidelines. You can talk about the kind of arms that the state police can have. You can talk about their jurisdiction, their limitations. These are things that can be addressed. But to say that you're not going to have it is really just running away from the reality.
So why does it seem like your party, on the federal level at least, seems to be against it?
No, in fact, don't forget that I think it's the APC that is against it, because presently the National Conference finished recommending state police. The APC doesn't seem to like the National Conference. They don't seem to like even the outcomes of the National Conference. President Jonathan is saying very clearly that When he comes back, he's going to ensure that National Conference report is adopted. And one of the recommendations in that report is for a state police. So I think it's the other party that is saying one thing and doing something else.